Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more things we need to do to make a better nation. This time we're going to talk about our foreign policy, or really lack thereof. It's more just all we have is a giant hammer, and thus everything looks like a fucking nail. Instead of the fact of doing things to try to forge better relationships. No, we want to do what the fuck we want because we've got some assholes in charge. This is from Wikipedia. A list of wars involving the United States. The United States has been involved in 114 military conflicts. These include the major conflicts where we usually think of the American Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Mexican-American War, American Civil War, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, and the Gulf War. It also includes U.S. involvement in widespread periods of conflict, like the Indian Wars, the Cold War, including the Korean and Vietnam War, and the War on Terror, including Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. 4 military engagements encompassing 3 wars, all of which are interventions currently involve the U.S. The Yemeni Civil War, the Somali Civil War, and the Syrian Civil War, which we know it just recently ended with the fall of the Assad regime. It was kind of recently big news, but yeah. But we look starting in the 18th century, 1700s. Green, the USA wins. Pink, the USA loses. Purple is another result, such as a treaty or peace without a clear result. Status quo antebellum. Result of the civil or internal conflict, result unknown or indecisive, inconclusive. And yellow, of course, is ongoing. The American Revolution, U.S. won. The Cherokee American Wars. Cherokee were one of the biggest native tribes settlers first came across because they encompassed pretty much all of Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as parts of North Carolina and Virginia. To give you an idea of how big the territory they claimed was. Now, there were other tribes the U.S. The young U.S. encountered first, but the Cherokee was perhaps the biggest one they first encountered. And of course, they win that war. Northwest Indian War, which was the U.S. siding allied with the Chickasaw and Choctaw versus the Western Confederacy, which is Great Britain. They're part of the American Indian Wars, which is also known as the 7 Years' Wars. No, that's French and Indian Wars. I was looking too far back. Now we come across our first loss, which was the American-Algerian War. Um, we would lose to Algeria. Um, but it would end result in the birth of the Navy, and you'd get that hymn, da 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 da, the shores of Tripoli. I believe that's where that's from, because I think it was the Treaty of Tripoli that was signed to end that one. Now here's one of the blue, purplish situations. It was the U.S. and Britain versus the French Republic. It's called the Quasi War. It happens during John Adams' presidency. We get into the 19th century, the 1800s. The first Barbary War, which is, I think, dealing like with pirates and stuff. Maybe that's the one about Tripoli. Because, yeah, it's talking about location, Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Tripoli. Okay, yeah, Tripoli's actually in Libya, not Algeria. Again, I'm not all familiar with foreign locations. I try to keep up to date on a bunch of them, but still. The U.S. were allied with Sweden, Sicily, Malta Protectorate, Portugal, the Sultanate of Morocco versus the Ottoman Tripolitania or Regency of Tripoli and the Sultanate of Morocco. I wonder if there's like a split issue between the two Sultanates of Morocco, or if they just switched sides at one point. Hard to say. Tecumseh's War, Indian Wars, War of 1812, Battle of Tippecanoe and Tyler too. William Henry Harrison, who was general in that battle. He would get elected and only live so long, basically setting Tyler into the presidency. I think Harrison only lived like a month or so. Anyway, War of 1812. The U.S. and many of the native tribes were fighting the British, Canada, and Swiss mercenaries and Tecumseh's Confederacy. U.S. was allied with the Choctaw, Cherokee, and Creek. We had no problems allying with native tribes if it fit our objective. Second Barbary War. First Seminole War, of course, at the time at what was Spanish Florida. The Araucarian Wars, the U.S. and Sioux versus the Arikara. Winnebago Wars, the U.S. and Choctaw versus the Prairie, La Crosse, and Ho-Chunks, and a few other allies. Like I said, you can see how often we would team with natives if it served our purpose. There was no real true ideation. It's just, let's attack. It helps us because these two tribes have been at war for so long, blah, blah, blah. Because not all these tribes were friendly with each other. There were conflicts between them. Anyway, Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. If you ever wondered if we ever fought with Mexico, a lot of land was picked up from winning that war. The Cayuse War, Apache Wars, Navajo Wars, Battle of Muddy Flats, part of the Taiping Rebellion and the Small Sword Society Uprising. This was part of the U.S.'s involvement with Britain against China, who had been taken over or would be taken over by a lot of these big empires like Britain and France and a lot of others. It brings up the Boxer Rebellion at the end of the 1800s, which I need to read that book when I get an opportunity with y'all. Bleeding Kansas. Yeah. Dealing with anti-slavery and pro-slavery. When they tried to further decide which states would be what, because they tried to keep an even amount of slavery and anti-slavery states. The Puget Sound War, part of the American Indian Wars. The U.S. and the Snoqualmie versus the Nisqually, Muckleshoot, Puyallup, Klickitat, Haida, Tlingit, Washington State. Rogue River Wars. A lot of these the U.S. won, and again, it's stupid shit. Second Opium War, part of the Opium Wars. We, of course, took the side of Britain and France, who were huge empires at that time, against China, who was fighting for their survival. The Utah War. This deals with Mormons and stuff. Reform War, Pig War. Yeah. This isn't talked about often, but yeah, it's dealing with a pig. You have a number of islands, and they were trying to find how to split what territory went to Canada and what went to the U.S. Yeah. Because we were deciding a lot of the Washington Territory and stuff. John Brown's raid on the Harper's Ferry, pre-Civil War. Of course, John Brown would be eventually arrested and executed for it. First and second Cortina Wars, Paiute Wars, American Civil War. And again, you can see the different tribes who they sided with just because, hey, it was useful for our situation. The Seminoles, the Muskogee were with the U.S. The Union, and the Confederate had Cherokee, Choctaw, Catawba, Chickasaw, Muskogee, Seminole. Yeah, the Seminole Western Nation, and the Comanche Nation. It split the Seminole Western Nation and the Muskogee Nation. So, between the two sides. Yeah, but look, we're only in the mid 1800s, and how many have we come across so far? The U.S. has been in an almost perpetual situation of fighting. Constantly. In some form of conflict or another. People don't realize it. They think, oh, we've only been in so many wars. Technically, we've only been in so many that have been listed as actual wars. Though the fact is, we have a huge, huge history of being militarily active. Conflicts and fucking interventionist policies. Good Lord. All the evils done in name of protection and safety, defense, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of it utterly bullshit. And then let's look at our military expenditures that we have here. We have a chart showing what countries spend on their military starting in 1949 to 2023. The U.S. is the light blue. Pretty damn big. Other NATO countries slowly grown. China is the pink, very small, up until about late 1990s. It starts growing. Russia is the red, which it's pretty good, pretty big. Stays big because we had that Cold War that we were trying to keep up with each other. And then the collapse of the USSR in about 92, 93. And you see how small their military is, though they slowly have been rebuilding it in the money they put into it. And then at the top, The gray is other countries. The U.S. spends more than China, Russia, and other countries put together. It'd be pretty close with other NATO countries on top of that. But yeah. Military spending as a percent of the federal revenue. So, yeah, starting in 1960, 50% of the revenue we brought in was used on military spending. It's dropped, it looks like, but the fact is it's just because we bring in more and more and more money, more revenue. So it ain't that our spending has dropped, it's just we're bringing in so much more revenue. Yeah. If you want a closer look at that expenditure chart, look how much the U.S. just outspends everybody. It's insane. The military budget of the U.S. is the largest portion of discretionary federal budget allocated to the Department of Defense, or more broadly, the portion of the budget that goes to any military-related expenditures. The military budget pays the salaries, training, and health care of uniformed and civilian personnel, maintains arms, equipment, and facilities, funds operation, and develops and buys new items. The budget funds 6 branches of the military: Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Air Force, and Space Force. Budget for the fiscal year 2025 as of March the 11th, 2024. The Department of Defense's fiscal year 2025 budget request was $849.8 billion. You know, it's only $7 billion more than the year before. The fact is, we spend too much on war hawkish bullshit. Honestly, it should be renamed the Department of War, as it was when the fucking U.S. was first formed. Because it ain't no fucking Department of Defense. It has nothing to do with goddamn defense. People think we're in danger of being attacked are fucking morons. Honestly. And I can already hear the little shit stains crying, "What about 9/11? Fuck you. Fuck you." That is a fluke incident that will probably never fucking happen again for a number of years, number of decades. So instead of being this huge spender on a military that does what for us? Yeah. I mean, look at this. The next closest country, we could cut our budget on we spend on the US military in fucking half and still beat China as far as much as spent. And other countries ain't even fucking close. It's disgusting, is what it is. Instead of trying to constantly spend and make this giant military monster, how about we keep soldiers trained for protection and instead work to do things to make better relationships with these other countries? Instead of all this interventionist fucking bullshit that so many of these jackasses won't. You know, if we would do things, and I ain't saying it should only be in other countries, not in the U.S. No, I want the U.S. to have a great infrastructure and everything, but if we would do things to help out other nations to try to mend relationships instead of constantly threatening to smack them around the head with our military hammer, you can do a lot more that way. You know, we should not constantly be seeking more military intervention. The fuckers who want this should get their heads fucking smacked about by somebody wearing a fucking iron gauntlet. Honestly. If you do things to work in unison, right now we're just an asshole. Because in the United Nations, the majority of the world's like, yeah, Israel's committing a genocide. Meanwhile, the U.S., keep funding them. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And in that, we're not even physically involved. We're just providing the money and the weapons and everything else. It's like, motherfucker. Instead of a fucking allowing them to commit genocide, how about having fucking talks? I think there was a point in time we used to have peace talks. I'm not sure, but someone remind me. I think. Oh God, what was it called? Camp David? That there would be peace talks? God damn it. I mean, seriously. If we would do things to help instead of acting like the only solution we have to any problems is a hammer, maybe things would be better. We could help improve the safety in their own lands, improve infrastructure. And again, infrastructure should be improved in the U.S., but if we do it in other countries, if we help them develop better off, then there's a chance we can improve relations. instead of going in and constantly just saying, yeah, let's launch some strikes. Think of how often fucking drone strikes and all this shit are used now. Obama had the highest rate of drone strikes until Trump. In his first 2 years, Trump did more drone strikes than Obama did in 8. We don't know how much there was for the full 4 because they basically quit covering the amount of drone strikes he would fucking do. I'm so sick and tired of the war hawks. If we would have actual attempts at peace, at solidarity. But no, that ain't fucking good enough to make enough money for some of these assholes. And then there's the fact the Department of Defense can't track where all their money goes. It's constantly like, we don't know where we spend it all. Really, guys? Really? You keep asking for more and more and you can't tell us where all of it goes. I'm so sick and tired of their bullshit. Let's see, status of funds. Trying to see if they'd mention anything in this, but I'm not seeing anything into it. But we know over the last several years, it's like we don't know where some of the funds are going. What do you mean you don't know? Instead of spending this so much money on all this crap, how about, and I've already suggested this, we nationalize some of these companies that charge us out the ass for weapons and stuff and bring them back in under the military fold to make weapons for the U.S., period, so that they don't charge us out the ass and we can actually get things done. And don't give me the bullshit that, oh, only the private sector can make truly great things. Fuck you. They charged us an arm and a leg for the F-35 for the longest goddamn time that didn't fucking work. We can cut a lot if we force them back into nationalization under our military. Because honestly, right now, it's just unacceptable what we spend. The attempts we have at just fucking violence instead of looking to do things like, hey, let's help you secure your nation, help you train some troops, let's help you build some infrastructure setups. But it's like, no, that's too much trouble. Let's just go in and kill and murder and bomb. You know, so many Americans are just tired of the fucking war hawk bullshit. Let's try to make a more peaceful existence where everybody can coexist on a kinder level. Yes, I'm aware there's always going to be someone who wants to perpetrate violence. In those cases, that's when you must be ready to act. But not everything in the goddamn fucking world requires it. Period. You don't like that answer too goddamn bad. But yeah. I'm I feel we could do a lot better with cooperational and peaceful means than constantly, look at our guns! If we work together, guess what? There's a chance they will be more willing to come and help us if we're here trying to help them. People are usually more open to working with you if you do things to help them instead of being a constant asshole like Trump and the fucking war hawk cocksuckers want to do. Fucking wanting war in Mexico. Fuck you, cocksucker. Anyway, yeah, I just thought I'd talk to you a bit about all that. I felt it's a part of, if we are to make a more successful, a better nation, we need more kindness, more softness, instead of constantly pulling out that hammer every time something pops up. It's like, wow. Because I hear so many of these dumbasses, war! We gotta go to war! No, you're a fucking moron. You know, a lot of the problems that exist now with immigrants and all these other things are a result of American interference, American negligence. And again, we're at this point where it's like, we want to stop foreigners, so let's have a war! How fucking stupid are you? How fucking stupid are you? Anyway, yeah. We should look for a an attempt to be more cooperative and try to help. I mean, shit, if we really want to proclaim use of the Monroe Doctrine, it shouldn't just be saying, oh, Europe and Asia shouldn't come over here and interfere. Let's help the Americas from the tip end of South America on up to the top of Canada. Let's try to make things more enjoyable, more cooperative, work together. You know, you catch so much more with honey than hammers. To continue to use my analogy of our military interventions as a hammer. Yeah. But, you know, fucking just a thought. Anyway, yeah, as always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.